Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. At the moment it's our replay viewers, welcome. It's lovely to be back with you again. This is class 2 of in the Energetic Architecture series. And today we're on Sacred Architecture, designing potent energy structures and building energy that holds. And so we're going to dive deep today. Before we do, replay viewers say hello so that I can welcome you on the replay. Let me know. It helps me understand what time zones are needing replays. It's always handy. While we are getting ready to start here, if you have not yet been added to the grid and you would like to be, go ahead and just type in the comments, please add me to the grid. I will add you. The grid is actually here. I don't know if you guys can see it, you probably can't, but we're kind of getting full to overflowing on all our people that are in the community for this event, which is very exciting. I do charge the grid every single morning, so everyone on the grid is being charged with the energy. The grid is sitting on my altar. This is my main working altar. Jessica, honey, please add you if you haven't been added. I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure I've added you. If you've asked me already, I've added everyone. Every day I go through and check. Wow, Darwin, woohoo, oh that's cool. Good morning, Eva, evening, morning, not sure where you are in the world. Okay, so the grid is on my altar. It gets charged every day, old-fashioned, hands-on way. And that altar is one of many that I have, but that's my working altar. And in case you're wondering, like a lot of people use their altars like just decorative, there's nothing wrong with that, but devotional, decorative, okay? And actually an altar, depending on your altar, but this one is my working altar, this is actually a tool or an instrument, right? And I actually use mine like a musical instrument when I altar weave. So I do a lot of work for clients on my altar, right? And your altar can actually build power, it can hold power, and it builds resonance over time. So when people come into this office space I have here and they feel my altar, like that, so many people are drawn to my altar. They're like, oh my gosh, that feels amazing. It's got years of resonance on that work. So, that's probably, it's just, anyway, I thought I would point that out because some people never sure how to use an altar. They kind of want to use an altar, but they're not sure how to. It's actually a massive multi-dimensional access point for a huge amount of energy if you know how to build it and work it. Okay, and I am actually, after this series, just to let you guys know, going to do a deep dive into an altar weaving immersion for people that are interested. And so in one sentence, which is hard to do, altar weaving is where we invoke, refine, craft and shape and calibrate packets of energy, like we're kind of doing here, but at a whole advanced level, inside like potent multi-dimensional containers, using our altar as the instrument that adds the resonances and flavors to the work, right? And it's a craft and an art of weaving energy to create these beautiful energetic assets. Now you can do blessings, healings, activations, you can create portals, vortexes, light wells. We're going to cover all of that stuff, right? So I thought I'd just mention that. I'm not going to go into it anymore now because I want to get on to the class, but if you are interested, let me know in the comments and I'll remember to send you some more information and details if you're curious. Okay, so let us talk. Oh, I'm going to say hello to everyone that's here. Tanya, Eva, Jessica, Cindy, mwah. Oh, beautiful. Canada, USA, Australia, Scotland. Wow, we have an international crowd this morning. I love that so much. And actually we have energy weavers from actually all those places in the world, so that is so cool. Okay, I'm going to dive in today. As you know, we're talking more about architecture. Last class we focused a lot on the somatic casting, setting our body into the optimal flow state. We want energy to move through the body as fluidly as possible. And so I took you through a process to ensure that you can set yourself up for whatever work you're doing, right? Whatever modalities you're using, whatever intentions you have, that priestess seat position is the position to put your nervous system, your energy body. Remember, we lowered our energy into that first power center, the bottom cauldron, right? So we want to put our energy body, our nervous system, and our physical body into the most easeful way for the most potent transfer or movement of energy through the body, okay? So you could use that for anything and everything, okay? But we're going to use that in the context of casting our work in this series, casting the energy that we want to send when we do our final big group ritual. And today we're going to talk about and how do we create the structure or the container that that energy is going to receive information from, be flavored by, and like move through. Okay, and that's the architecture piece we're focusing on today. So we're going to cover a lot of ground, because I think a lot of people they're never sure exactly, how do I word that? How do I set that up and structure it for the highest and the best, making sure I'm doing it ethically? Am I taking into account all the things I need to take into account? So I'm going to give you all of that understanding today. Once you understand the context, you go for it and design it however works in resonance with you, right? So the most important thing is that you get the concepts and you consider them, like, oh, I've never considered that before. Yeah, I should think about that when I'm getting ready to do some work, okay? And it doesn't need to be complex, long, fancy. I remember in my early Wicca training, crazy long rituals, okay? It does not need to be that. It could be that. Usually you're doing that because you're building or raising the cone of power, which we do as energy weavers much quicker, right? But usually that's why rituals go so long and so elaborate, right? You can do it much more simply as long as you understand the architecture underneath what you're doing. But I'm also going to give you some really simple wording, all right, towards the end, so that for those of you that like, I don't feel super creative, I want a template, I'll give you a template. But if you don't like my template, do your own wording as long as you understand the concepts, okay? Okay, so today we're going to talk about destination context, paths of least resistance, working with allies, working with the available resources, working with nature, right? And different higher ethics. So that I know that a lot of people sometimes worried, is this in the highest and the best? Am I not like making it worse, all that sort of stuff? We're going to go through all of that today so you feel confident and you know how to structure your work. Woohoo! Hello, Patricia. Cool, Lou. Nice to see you again, honey. Okay, so during the classes, as we go through this today, occasionally, it's probably not going to happen very often, you'll hear me address the weavers on the call. That's energy weavers, right? And I'm doing that because there are many people who are already trained, initiated energy weavers, like full body energy weavers, here on the call, okay? And so I might just be giving them a small clarification or joining the dots for them. Now, all the classes have been fully designed, these classes here in this series, for just our open public community. So you do not need to be an energy weaver to do any of this, right? But in case you get confused what I'm talking about, that's what I'm talking about, okay? And if you are interested in energy weaving, which is, I'm going to be honest, energy weaving is the core modality. Altar weaving is a branch, a craft, a specialization of energy weaving. Now, you don't need to be an energy weaver to do it, but if you are an energy weaver, you're going to be like exponentially more powerful at altar weaving. But you can altar weave without being an energy weaver, okay? Now, if you are interested in energy weaving, drop that comment here below, because we do have energy weaving coming up, and I have done something crazy, but I'm super excited about it. I have an amazing offer that combines altar weaving and energy weaving together, right? And it's the deeper mentorship path. You'll kind of be mentoring really deeply with me. Just let me know if that's what you're interested in, the mentorship path, and I will let you know. It's combined, there's all sorts of stuff in it. I'm not going to go into it now, but just let me know. Okay, so let's get into it. You know to ask questions. My comments are working so well today, so I'm going to be way on it. If you have a question as we go, just ask, right? This is a small community. I'm highly engaged. I'm happy to connect and answer your questions. I want you to get what you want out of it. So don't sit there going, I don't know how that applies to me. Just ask, right? I promise I will get to them. And if for some reason I miss it, I'm always in going over the comments in the replays, right? If you're on replay, don't feel like you're behind. I'll be in there all the time answering. Okay, so it's going to help for you today if you pick a topic, even if it's not your final topic that you want to cast for next Wednesday, but pick a topic in mind so that as I'm going through and I'm giving you all the metaphysical teaching, you can apply it, right? You can go, oh yes, I can see what she's talking about. How would that play out in my example, right? Now, the topic that you want to cast for is something that you want to send support or aid to. It could be healing, could be activation, could be blessings, right? It could just be some form of support. It could be global. It could be local, right? So just whatever pops into your head for the sake of this class, you can run with that. If you want to do that next Wednesday, you'll be building it right here in this class. And if you're like, I don't know what I want to do next Wednesday, just pick a topic now so you can apply it, and you can easily do as many as you want after this, right? So you can pick another one for next week if that floats your boat. Okay, so having said all that, sorry, I'm checking all my comments. Okay, Lou, awesome. Okay. Okay, so why structure matters, okay? Because at the end of the day, we do have life force. We talked about animals. You know that we cast the divinity bubble in our last call, and we sent that, right? And that was potent energy. It was divinity moving through the collective, which is beautiful, right? Why do we actually want a bit more structure, okay? Well, when we send broadly, we get a more diffuse, wider pool. It's very generalized, okay? When we add structure to energy and we create an energetic container of any form, right, we create amplification. When energy from here moves into the smaller space, it moves, energy is always in motion, at higher velocity because it's hitting the edges of its boundaries more. Okay, this also works in physics, and it builds and it grows. Okay, so we get more potency, more amplification, and we also get more targeted support because we're giving more instructions or more defined pathways for the energy to move through to the destination. Okay, so is it required? No, you can just send a divinity bubble, right? But if you want to do a higher level of work, then structure and containment and funnel the energy into that tighter amplification and attunement of the energy to the work. Just a little tighter focus, okay? Of course, while leaving room for the divine intelligence to move through you, to inform you, to give guidance, and to know better. And we're going to cover that little know better piece as we move through, okay? Okay, so when we're doing this architecture, just making sure no questions so far. Nope, good, okay. When we move through creating architecture, we're going to talk today about 3 components predominantly, right? These are the ones that I want you to think about that should go into every energy packet, energy cast, transmission, projection, spell, whatever you want to call it, okay? So the first of these is energy, right? What resonance, qualities, vibrations are you going to flavor the animus, the life force, the creative substance with when you send it? This is your raw fuel, okay? Now you can send any quality really that you think will support the work. I'm going to get into the nuance of that as we go through, right? So you can send peace, you can send endurance, you can send joy, right? You can send anything, right? With a few caveats, which we'll get into as we move through today. For those of you in the past who have worked with me on building an energetic apothecary of resonances, right, then you have a very bespoke, unique set of nuanced blends of qualities that you can absolutely send here, right? And you know the 4 governing ascensional resonances in your apothecary, you can definitely use one of them. I would recommend that. And you can attune the animals to that and then project, right? Now we can do this at all different levels of complexity. So for everyone who doesn't have an apothecary yet, that's 100% okay, no problems. Then you're going to pick something with my guidance today for this example, and if you want to change your mind, you can do it as you move through. When we do the guided ritual, I will help you amplify all of that and bring that through in the work. So don't worry about how, just think about what would serve, okay? Now, the main key thing to note about energy is you do need to do that through your body. You can't mentally think calm or joy. You need to send the energy through the body somatically, through the somatic pathways in your body. Those with the apothecary, you have entrained somatic pathways, right? Which means that the energy is going to move fast, fluid, and potently through your system along those entrained pathways, right? And of course the benefit is that it shifts your state straight away too. As soon as you invoke that through your body, of course that changes your frequency as well, which is such a beautiful divine reciprocity, right? Our energetic work should never, ever, ever deplete us. It should fuel us, nourish us, and light us up. We should get the same gifts moving through our bodies, attuning and affecting our systems as what we send to another, okay? That's a bit of a rant on the side there, but we'll talk more about that later, okay? So regardless of whether you have an entrained pathway, even if you don't have that apothecary, you have a pathway somatically in your body for something that you have experienced in the past. Maybe little and may not be super entrained, right? But it's enough that we can work with it. So you need to be able to do that through your body. It needs to be something you can authentically access, even as a tiny seed, in your body at the moment you're doing the work, okay? And that, I'm going to dive into that as we move through today, right? But that's something to think about, okay? So pick the qualities that you think are going to serve your topic today. Everyone commenting here means we inspire each other. So just throw out comments and let me know, what are you thinking? Okay, what I will guide the amplification. So as long as you have a seed of it, you've felt it once in the past, you've remembered it, I can help you re-invoke that somatically through your body. Don't worry about it. But like, what quality would actually serve the work you're thinking of casting? How do you want to flavor that energy? What can be received into the destination's energy field, whether that be a system or a person, right? A collective or a person that is going to serve. So let me know. Write something in the comments that you think would actually serve. Okay, DNA activation. Ooh, DNA activation, Eva, is something that we would do in altar weaving for sure. Joy is an awesome one, Tanya. Maybe go with activation. Like, Eva, how would you feel DNA activation in your body? Like, can you remember a time that you felt DNA activation? What was the feeling of it in your body, right? There was probably like an expansion. There was probably like you can feel it. Sometimes it's even hard to put into words, some of these somatic sensations in our body. But that's where, like, think about if you felt it in the past, how would you feel it, right? Healing, that's a beautiful one, Cindy. So get a little more specific. When you have felt healing in the past, what have you felt? Right? How has it made you feel? Right? Because it's the quality that is supporting the healing. Right? So go down that next level if you can. Impersonalness. Okay, I actually get that. I understand that. A bit like a neutrality, maybe. I'm curious, but yep, that's a good one. Okay, awesome. So that's one component that you want to consider. The second component that we want to consider is intention. And these are the instructions. These are the directions for the energy, the destination for the energy, and what you want to affect and how. Okay? So I'm going to talk more about that as we move through as well. And this will include destination, context, all the things that we would consider to give more targeted aid. A lot of people are very general in their work, right? This intention bit is going to include advanced nuances that we're going to talk about of do no harm, foundational creed, and what does that mean at like a mastery level, not at a surface generic level, but what does that really mean, and divine will, and making sure you're attuned to alignment with divine will. So all of that is in intention, and we're going to dive into that. Self-love and care, that's a great one. Wellness, awesome. How does wellness feel in your body? Make sure that you can connect to that sensation in your body and go, yep, I got it. Because sometimes the word is hard to. As long as you can feel that in your body, you are good to go. Okay, and the third and last one that we're going to consider in our architecture is paths of least resistance, right? And allies and resources. So these are structures or considerations that give your work extra reliability, extra strength, but also more predictable results, I would say, right? And you want to structure your work to work with these, not against them, right? So we'll go into all of that. Okay, so let's start with a scenario, and we'll take one that is common, that a lot of people come to me about, possibly because of where I live. Not sure, but bushfires. Let's take wildfires, bushfires, right? Because a lot of people reach out to me asking, how can I support in those scenarios? What can I send? Now, most people will cast an intention to send or make rain, right? That's like the first protocol. Now, this is general, and it's a little more diffuse because it lacks a bit more context. So I'll give you an example now. Let's go back to one of the recent disastrous bushfires, which was the LA fires, right? Now, the LA fires in the US, think back to that. Okay. What they had running there was they were in a drought. Zoom out. We're looking at the destination, the context at the destination. They were in drought. Water was not a resource that was at their destination easily available. Okay, so it was going to be not along the path of least resistance to work with water, right? Water was not really happening there. What they had a ton of was the Santa Ana winds, which was actually creating huge problems for the fires, right? So they had a lot of air, they had a lot of wind. So in this case, it would have been more, the path of least resistance working with that destination at that time would be to drop the winds to nothing, to subdue the winds, rather than try to call in rain, okay? Now, vibrancy, that is an awesome one, Lou. Sorry, I'm checking my comments as I go. Okay, so some of you know the story that in the 2019 fires here in Australia, most of the east coast of Australia was on fire. I live smack bang in the middle of one of the world's largest eucalyptus forests. Eucalyptus trees are highly flammable. They actually explode, like literally explode under enough heat. And I live in a giant forest. And we did have huge fires coming at us from 3 directions, right? How crazy is that? South, north, and west, all coming at us. But the one that was concerning me was from the north, because I have a valley just here on the north, and then it's me, right? And so a huge fire front had been moving down towards me for 3 months, and it was just burning down every village, town, etc. that it came to as it went. It took out many, many houses. It was a big fire, right? I think it had at one point 120 kilometer front. It was ridiculous. It was huge. And it had actually been dubbed the unstoppable fire. Like, people were like, it's just going to burn to the ocean. That's what's going to happen. Okay, that was the fire front that was coming at me, right? That was the one that my house was under threat from that year. And to cut a long story short, despite 100 fire trucks trying to hold the line, the fire jumped the line and moved into the valley behind me. And it was still about 15 k's away, but that was the last port of call. That was now inaccessible terrain. Now, usually, historically, what that means is the fire's going to come up the other side of the ridge and it's going to hit the villages along my side, which would be my house. So at that point, I packed everything into the car. The kids were already asleep, and we planned to evacuate first thing in the morning. Now, I went that night and I did an energy weave, right? Now, I wove to regulate my own field and system because I was a bit like, whoa, this is kind of big, right? But in the course of that weave, I generated a huge amount of fuel, massive amount of fuel, probably because of my heightened emotional state, right? I wove a lot of energy. And in that particular situation, I used the land because I knew the terrain. I used the land as my resource, right? And the shape of the way the canyon moves and the gullies and stuff. And I cast all that energy into a wall down the valley. And I went about 10 Ks that way and 15 Ks that way in total, right? And I cast that wall. So I worked with the land, the geography that I knew because I was local to that, okay? Long story short, the fire surprisingly held in the middle of that valley, stopped dead, no one even knew why. For about 10 days, it just sat there, right? And it was actually an interesting lesson for me because when I was casting, felt, oh my God, how much energy can I hold? Like how wide can I put that wall? And I told you the distances, right? And when I looked at the map later, the fire held along that line and jumped, broke containment, west of me, past my line, and east of me, past the line. They're the two places that it broke containment, which was like a bit of a for me because I actually saw the results of my energetic work on the land, like burnt on the land. So that was a crazy story. But the point is, I used the resource of the geography because I knew it. If I was doing the LA fires, and I did, it was cast for that too, I took down the winds, right? Because that's what I knew they had, right? Okay, so in the broader context of your destination for your work, or turn winds back on the fire. Yep, so that is another one. Changing wind direction is a great one. Since 2019, I've actually become a firefighter, which is kind of crazy. And let me tell you, wind is our number one thing here in my geography that we want to know. More than anything else, we always are on wind direction because it makes a massive difference to the fires. Wind speed, wind direction, right? So yeah, turning the wind actually back onto the direction of the fire means the fire will be pushed back over itself, right? And when we firefight, sometimes we'll do what's called a backburn and we'll move the fire towards the fire so it's got no fuel left when it hits it. Turning the wind back on itself would do the same thing. It's already burnt out that fuel. So yeah, perfect. Okay, so in the broader context of your work, right, and the topic that you're thinking about, what do people need? What resources, if you zoom out, what do they need? Do they need strength? Do they need hope? Do they need belief? Do they need calm? Do they need resilience, right? What resources do they have available at them? So in the case of the LA fires, wind, right? We also had the firefighters. They were a resource. What do they need? You could have cast the work for the firefighters. They needed energy, stamina, strength, calm, balance, probably relief from the heat, right? It's probably super depleted. The community, what did they need, right? So if you can zoom out of your situation and think about all the components that are available to you at the destination and that are needed at that specific destination, right, then what is yours to contribute? What feels accessible to you, or what do you feel pulled towards, okay? And we'll circle back to this, but that is really how you can start to go, right, this is how I'm going to influence the work, okay? So think of your topic right now and brainstorm and just write down something that you feel within the context of the destination and the resources that are available, what can you offer? Write something down, let me know in the comments. Okay. This leads us directly into working with paths of least resistance. So let's jump in here. Energy, like water, wants to travel along paths of least resistance, okay? And you will get more of your energy to the destination with more speed and more effect and more potency if you work along the paths of least resistance, right? So there are two types of paths of least resistance that we're going to talk about. Hold on, Jessica, honey. Can you cast for self-trust if there's no understanding of it? If there's no understanding of it in you or in the destination. As long as it's in you, yes, you can absolutely cast for it, and you can activate the willingness, those not completely shut down in it. To the personal system you cast to do, yes, absolutely, Jessica. As long as you can feel that, right, then yes, you can gift that, cast that. And I think that would actually be a super powerful, empowering thing to cast. Yes. Okay, so we have two paths of least resistance, or two types that I want to talk about here. They're not the only ones, but they're the ones we'll focus on so that we can get the understanding going, right? So the first is, as we've talked about, what resources are available, what are the conditions. You know that the LA fires, the path of least resistance was the wind not trying to create rain in the middle of a drought. Okay. The second one is, what are the cosmological conditions at the time of your work? Because these also are offering, because of their alignment and resonances, paths of least resistance. Okay. So, I'm giving you the fire one. In the case of like an armed conflict, which side is the path of least resistance and what do they need? Now, what is the highest and the best for everyone comes in here. There is the human level of us that has an opinion about things and believes that one side is wrong and one side is right, and if one leader would just have something horrible befall him, that would fix everything, right? And that's very human of us to do that. But in our work here, we have to rise above that. And so what is in the highest and the best? You want to elevate your work here, okay, to the highest and the best. Okay, so which is the path of least resistance? Is it to calm rage, or is it to install peace? Maybe it's to invoke like inspiration for new solutions, right? Maybe it's physical energy, right, to rally. It depends what you feel is available, and what is in alignment with what you feel is the highest and the best. Okay, rising above our humanness in this example. It's okay to be human. I understand it. I feel it myself. But when we do this work, we want to do it at a higher level. Okay? And so as we're talking about this, we can also talk about nature allies here, right? Because they might be paths of least resistance as well. Now, it's not just the elements. There's many things, right? But let's just talk about the elements for a second. So we've already talked about wind, but wind is part of, or an expression of, the element of air. Now, air is not just air in the physical sense. Air actually also influences and can invoke and raise different qualities. Now, air, for example, is associated with movement, change, mental thoughts, new ideas, inspiration, right? Fire, besides its physical attributes, is also will, passion, creativity. Earth, stability, patience, endurance. Water, flow, ease, surrender, intuition, emotions, okay? Now, obviously that was extremely broad of the elements, right? But consider what quality of the element might be helpful here. That just refines your architecture a little bit more, right? So it's not just the element, but you can name the quality, right? I offer the stability of earth, or the change of air, for example, right? Are things that you can do. Okay, now everyone has different understandings and relationships and training with elements, so work at the level that feels right to you, okay? Another path of least resistance was that cosmological one that we spoke about, okay? And there are many, everyone's got different modalities here under their tool belt. So if astrology is yours, you can work with the astrological chart of the present moment. You can work with the numerology. You can work with all sorts of things. But I'm going to talk about a simple one here that is easy and is well entrained in the collective psyche and somatically entrained through the collective, and that is the moon and its phases, right? So the new moon initiates new beginnings. The full moon brings things to fruition or at their apex. The waxing moon, as it's increasing between the new moon and the full moon, is increasing, expansive, generative. And the waning moon, as it's moving back, getting smaller again, supports release or decrease. Okay, so the same outcome for your work can be structured in two different ways, right? You can increase peace and calm level heads on a waxing moon, or you can decrease rage and hostility on a waning moon. Okay, you can release old stories of conflict on the waning moon, or you can cultivate new solutions on a waxing moon, right? So again, think of your example for a moment, thinking of these paths of least resistance. What are the paths of least resistance for you? Now, at the moment, today, right, we are in a waning crescent moon, right at the end. In fact, tomorrow's the new moon. Can you post the moon cycles on your page later? Yes, I will do my best to find them. They're easy to Google. Right, I'm going to talk you through them now, right? Okay, so right now we're in a waning crescent moon phase. Tomorrow will be a new moon. Okay, so we're in the waning side, which is conducive for releasing, decreasing, and we're moving towards a new moon, which is new starts. Okay, think about that. Now, next week on Wednesday, when we cast, we will actually be in a waxing phase. First quarter, early, only just after the new moon, but we're in the start of the waxing phase, which means that we can work along a path of least resistance that is towards growth, building, increase, attraction, drawing energy in, right? Things about courage, expansion, momentum, all of that sort of energy is a path of least resistance, working with the moon phase when we actually do our ritual next week. So when you're creating the structure for what you want to cast next week, that's a great way to go about doing it, okay? Okay, so think about your topic now and write down some ideas, if you've got them, on a path of least resistance. Just pick one that pops into your mind. You do not have to take everything. I'm giving you lots of examples so you can wrap your head around it, okay? But you might not have to put everything in mind, right? Especially if this is your first time hearing this information. Just pick one now that you're thinking about the directions and the energies and what the paths of least resistance might be, and write it in the comments. If you're not sure, ask me a question, right? Love that everyone's asking me questions, super helpful. Okay, so we'll look a little deeper at that third component now, the essences and energies, right? Words are thrown around a lot online, and I think there's a lot of talk about magic at a very superficial level. It's kind of been glamorized and flattened, right? That's not the level I'm ever going to talk about here, right? I'm always going to talk about the deeper energetics and the metaphysics behind all of it, okay? So when we throw around those words like I'm sending love and light, right? The real power here is not in those words, it's in the felt expression in your body, and then you cast. Remember, we learnt to cast somatically class 1, okay? So just sending love and light, right? Unless you actually feel the love and cast it, feel the light and cast it, you didn't send it, okay? You expressed an intent, which is energetically is a tiny little bubble. It's beautiful, but take that extra 10 seconds to generate the feeling in your body and cast it using your breath, using your pressure touch, like we did that. Yep, go for it, do that, because that's actually really what you want to send, okay? So the last class we sent divinity, the divinity bubble somatically, right? And we actually, you'll notice when I took you through that guided process, we spent a lot of time generating the felt sense in our body. Remember, I took you through that, breathing in divinity, growing it in the body, feeling the felt sense of it, feeling your body's divinity respond and activate, right? I spent time doing that. Why? Because that was all of the fuel, that was all the flavor, that was all the resonance that you cast, okay? So this essence was the fuel and the flavoring, the resonances, okay? And the qualities are received, those qualities are what is received into the energy fields of all the recipients of your work that are open to receiving, okay? Now, a little side note on this open-closed piece. I'm not going to go into the whole metaphysics of it, but I will say here that everyone's energetic systems are open unless they intentionally shut them down. So you can close your energy system down. You can actually get it kind of stuck closed if you're in a lot of trauma, or like you've shut down and not safe, and you can get caught there. But generally speaking, your energy body is designed to open and close as needed to regulate your energy. It's like a breathing cycle. You expand and contract energetically just as you breathe. It's a discussion for another time, right? But by default, our energy body is open, right? Which is why spongy empaths suck up so much stuff, right? Because they're very porous. Again, I'm sidetracking a little bit, but most people's energy fields are open, okay? So most people, as long as it's in their highest and best, will receive your energy work. Okay. So what do you have access to generating in your body in the moment that you cast the work, right? So remember last class I talked about your most potent work will come from you being in your highest position of power, right? Now, this is your state. Are you optimally aligned and attuned, right? Is your nervous system, your energy body, your physical body, your emotional body in a good place? Right? I'm going to dive much deeper into this in our next class, right? But that is the priestess seat that I gave you, right? Secondly, in this dimension, or any dimension of form, 3D, 4D, 5D, right? The most powerful place, to have the most potency and the most control is an embodied position in your body, okay? This is 101, of course, for all energy weavers, right? By default, you know you're cultivating this strong, fluid, controlled, felt relationship with energy and increasing the knowing and the experience of their power in their body. They're in embodied position, okay? Then the third part of your most potent position is your present moment, right? You cannot work from the past or the future. Even if you're affecting change in those areas, the place that you do that is from present moment. When you cast, it's in that moment. That's the power moment, okay? It's also the 0 point moment that they talk about. That's actually where you need to be for your most potent work, right? Yep, Eva, correct. Tanya, sending inspiration and hope to the light workers in Canberra to help them feel supported. Awesome, that is perfect, Tanya. And that's good, that's specific, right? And just double check and think about Canberra. That's, you're familiar with Canberra. Make sure that you're making use of the resources in that particular situation to their maximum, okay? Awesome. Okay, so those are the 3 places that you want to consider. What do you have access to that's going to serve? We've talked about it a bit already, so you've probably already thought about it. I'm going to guide you through that. Just for your work for next week, keep it simple and just pick one. One, usually when you start working with essences, and we use essences in altar weaving, we use essences in energy weaving, of course. When you start to work with an essence in a little bit more detail, you'll realize it has amplifiers and cohabitators. It has qualities that exist with it, and it has things that amplify it. And so an essence has all of these sort of like a little microcosmic orbit, if you like, of things that go into it, and you just are trying to give it a label. It's often hard to flatten to language, right? Which is why light language is so powerful. We don't have to flatten it to a word, right? Okay, so we're going to finish up here with some ethics, and then I'm going to give you some wording, and then we'll be done. If you've got questions, go for it. Okay. So let's talk about free will. Let's talk about this or something better, do no harm, and alignment with higher will. Okay? So first rule, all work should be governed by the rule of do no harm. Fundamental Wiccan creed. It's also a fundamental Shandarian creed. It's probably a creed for most of you too, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure I don't have anyone here in the community that wouldn't be a creed for. Okay, so do no harm. We never want to cause harm. And so you want to think carefully about how you're structuring this work. And I mentioned that, right? I understand the human sentiment. Need to rise above that. Okay? Now, harm has way less potency and requires you to stay connected to the work, by the way. So animus itself, that raw fuel that we're using, that I've spoken about in all our energy work, is of the divine, okay? And as such, it is not in any form coherent with harm, okay? It will actually end up folding back on itself and collapsing without a huge amount of sustained will and force from you, right? Which is why I say you would need to stay highly invested and connected into the work, which would be not advised and draining and not good. I'm going to talk about how not to do that in the next class, right? In all work, whether it's good work or not. You don't want to stay connected and like being sucked out by the work. That's not ever what we're going to do. We never use our innate energy, right? In Qigong, they call that Nei Qi. We don't use that. We use our practice Qi. We cultivate and amplify extra energy. We do not just use what's floating around us in the room. Certainly as energy weavers, you know, you cultivate massive fuel sources and use that instead, right? We don't use our innate systems. Now, that would be the only way to hold harm too. So we're never, ever, ever going to do that, right? And harm will also create backlash and rebound because the energetic systems at the destination will respond and go up in defense. They'll close down, like they'll put up their shields, right? For the most part, even if it's only to some degree, there will be resistance. The work will not fully land. And so when you cast and you send the work to the destination, and there is, for a short time until you release it, which we will do, there is a conduit that moves between you and the work, an energetic conduit. And the work will hit that and bounce back. We don't want that, okay? So obviously, I probably don't need to share that all with you, but do no harm, super important, right? Now, there's a little bit of nuance here too, because harm can sometimes be accidental, right? And so how do we make sure that we don't put that in place? Now, one of the ways that we can do it accidentally is we can see others as victims or not in their highest divine empowered state. We always want for all our work, for the destination to feel in their most empowered position. We want to lift them up. So we do not want to see them from a victim state and feel sorry for them and feel so much grief for them, right? And I understand those human concepts a lot, empathic, right? We get that. Like, we can feel deep pain and grief for the suffering of others. But if we see them in that light when we're cast, we're actually diminishing their own empowerment. And we don't ever want to do that, right? So just think that through when you're looking at your work, okay? And we want to ensure that we're always casting for their highest and their best, okay? So the other thing of do no harm is we can never override another's free will choice, okay? So if they do not want the work, they can't have, then that's their choice. We would never override that. That would be another fundamental principle. Okay, so what sort of words can we add to make sure that we've got a bit of a clause or a loophole here, okay? So the clause for all of this, there's two of them, right? But to not override free will choice, we simply add, now I'll give you these words, but you can have your own as long as the sentiment is there. May this work be received by all who will, for all it will support and who are willing to receive. So may this work be received by all who it will support and are willing to receive. Now you of course can change that, however, but that just puts that in there. Okay. In the case of the earth, if you're doing earth work, may this work serve Mother Earth as she sees fit. Is perfectly fine, right? It keeps the work respectful and ethically in integrity, right? Now, the other part of do no harm that I sometimes have conversations with, especially with people who've been light workers for a long time, and as we enter this era now where we're in this massive period of ascensional change and shift on the planet, is like, how do I know that I am in alignment or I'm not doing harm in the grander ascensional scheme? How do I actually know what is playing out on those larger cosmic scales? And that's like a tricky one, right? The humanist in us goes, oh my God, this is terrible. I want to stop this. I want to stop this bushfire, stop this hurricane, all those sorts of things, right? there's such a grander divine plan playing out right now that those of us that have been doing this for a long time can sit back and go, whoa, how do I know that I'm not actually trying to work against the grander, higher scheme of things, right? Who are we to say what the outcome should be? And at the end of the day, that is true, right? We are human right now in this form. I mean, we're more, but we're right now in our human experience, right? And I know that this can sometimes feel really, really hard, but at the moment, we are not divine, so we're in a bit of a tricky place here. There is actually an easy solution to this, believe it or not, okay? We do our best to structure the work, as we've talked about here, to serve with do no harm, and we simply add this or something better to the end of our cast. Or alignment with divine will, this or something better, right? In alignment with divine will, this or something better, okay? And that allows the energy that we cultivate and amplify, the beautiful qualities, which I've already seen everyone's qualities, they're all higher qualities of do no harm. We can still send that, and if that is really not in alignment with, for some reason, divine will, then the divine can still utilize our gift in the highest form for the highest outcome, okay? Sending healing energy to trust Pepper to help him. Okay, perfect. I like that. That sounds very specific, Cindy, and that's, oh, yeah, and that sounds fine. I don't understand the whole context of the work, but that's okay. It sounds fine to me. Okay. Okay, so this or something better. That's the clause that we get to add at the end. And I understand how hard this can be. You know, a few years ago, my dad went into hospital for some surgery. He came out of surgery and he was fine. And so I went home. I live a few hours, obviously, out of the city where I am. And then I got a call at like 10 p.m. at night from his doctor saying terrible stuff was going down and I needed to get to the hospital first thing in the morning. It was touch and go as whether he was going to make it. Like it had suddenly all gone very pear-shaped. He'd been put in intensive care. It was pretty intense. So I wove that night and I cast. Now, obviously, I cast for his healing, right? But I had to also cast clearly that if that is not in his free will choice and in the highest and the best, then I cast the energy for his peaceful transition, right? That was hard for me to do, but I did, okay? And I cast that energy. And then I got up at dawn preparing to get my butt out to the hospital, and I rang the hospital, and the doctor was surprised. She'd actually been there all night with him, which was amazing. And she was like, shockingly, for some unknown reason, his blood work completely shifted 180 in the middle of the night. It had transitioned so much they took him out of intensive care and he was back on the ward, and I didn't need to rush, right? So in that case, great, I was in alignment. But I had to put that clause in to be ethically right? Like, why would I hold my dad against his own free will choice? That's not cool, right? So, let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what's clicked for you in all this today. And we're just going to spend the last few minutes today. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of wording here, and then I want you to think through and write out a wording example and pop it in the comments if you want me to take a look at it and refine it. Right? And it's helpful for other people too. So we're all learning here together. So here's an example that we could do, right? I'll give you the wording, you'll hear this. So, may this offering, there you go, bring safety to all in the area. Now, obviously, I'm going to generate safety in my body when I do that. Let the winds come to nothing. I'm using our LA story, right? Let the winds come to nothing. Let the temperatures fall. Let the flames falter on the land. I'm using all those paths of least resistance. I'm using the context, the destination context, right? I cast for this or something better. That's my loophole. May this work be received by all it will support and who are willing to receive. Done. Okay? Now let's look at it. That was for a waning moon, right? Let's look at a waxing moon. Same context. Okay? I can say, may this offering, or with this offering, I send calm and safety to all those affected in LA. Right? Let the firefighters' endurance and reserves be strong and continuous, ever fed by this work. See, I'm working with the waxing energy. Let the community rise in compassion and care. right? Look at what I'm using in my destination. Let all remember their immense resource beyond limitations. I cast for this or something better. May this work be received by all it will support and who are willing to receive. Okay, there are 2 examples. Now I'm actually, after I get off this class today, I'm going to put those examples, I'm going to put a Cliff Notes PDF version of this with the wording and all of that together as a PDF, and I will send it out as an email to everyone who's on the event list in the email. If for some reason you're in the group and you didn't like put your email address into the opt-in and opt into it, just do that. It's in the welcome post in the featured area of the events. You'll see the email link, and that will mean later on today you'll get the PDF of this. I know I threw a lot of theory at you guys today. Okay, so I'll send it out, the Cliff Notes version, so you have the PDF and you can keep it moving forwards. Pepper is my new horse. Oh, beautiful, Cindy. That makes more sense. Awesome. Yeah, that's perfect then. And you can also probably really tap into, so we'll do this in altar weaving, for example. Tap into Pepper, her system as a horse, tune into her energy and really feel her spirit. And that will even help you refine a little more what energies are going to support her the most, right? So just healing is a broader context, and it's good if you don't have anything more specific. But I bet if you tap into her spirit, her energy, him or her, sorry, then you will probably get something a little bit even more specific, okay? Okay, so hopefully you're writing out an example of that for me or asking me a question. Now is the right time to do that. Take a moment to just go over this, okay? And I'll just keep chatting for a little bit here in case questions come up. But I thought I would talk a little bit about what we're doing here in this work is a blessing or a healing, probably, right? And this is a one and done. And in next class, I'm going to teach you how you know the work is landed, how you protect your energy, how you make sure that it's clean and it holds without draining, a continuous drain on you. All of that we're covering next class, right? But this is a one and done piece of work, right? And I would say what I'm teaching you here is it's certainly way beyond the surface generic level. It's got a lot of depth in metaphysical and energetic architecture, but it's still a starting point, right? And so in that altar weaving that we're going to be doing next up, we're going to be going so much deeper. We are going to be creating energetic assets, right? And these assets actually create a repository. We're going to do that too. I'm going to help you create a 5D repository where you can store all these energy assets and reuse them over and over again. You can give them to clients, you can give them to people, and they act like either antidotes or supplements, right? Think of it like that. Once you create the energetic asset on the altar and you store it 5D in your repository, then you get to reuse them, right? And we're going to do different classes. So we're going to do vortexes and light wells and portals. We'll do all this stuff, right, on the altar, okay? And we're also going to dive a lot deeper into diagnosing the situation, right, and the structure, and pulling the system that we're going to work on into an orb and diagnosing it, kind of turning it around in the 3D and making sure that we're covering all sides, because in any side of a condition, as you've seen already, even just looking at the paths of least resistance, we have things we could have increase and we have things we could decrease, right? And when we weave the architecture of that orb and this energy asset that we're going to create on the altar, all of them that we're going to do, you want to take both of those into account in the structures, right? You're also going to learn to weave your own field, bring that into the orb and fully recalibrate and weave your own field. We're going to do it along a few different systems, right? I'm going to give you the frameworks, I'm going to guide you through it, and then you can keep doing it yourself moving forwards. And we're going to work with energetic shape and structure inside the orbs, which is a little bit like, I guess, sort of surgery. I'm hesitant to say that, but we work with structuring and working with the energy body to recalibrate it and heal what needs to be reroute, like all that sort of stuff happens inside of this, right? And we're also going to take it next level, and I'm going to Some of you will have already done this work, but if you haven't, don't worry, we can start wherever you're at. I'm also going to teach you how to start channeling light language activations and codes into those energetic assets over the altar, using the altar to help the channel move through you. Okay, so that you'll do some light language work in there, right? And of course, we're going to work with a completely different level of resonances and allies, because I'm going to teach you to build those assets off the altar. I'll teach you several ways to build your altar so that you have the resonances that you pick up. It's a bit like a musical instrument. You pick up and move into the work, right? It's actually really beautiful, right? It's a very I would say I'm going to give you all the frameworks, and it's going to feel like you have a lot of structure, but it's actually also, it's a meeting of science and art, right? It's a real craft. It's very artisan. It's very, these beautiful bespoke, it's actually a way to do handmade bespoke resonance, artisan type energy work, but be able to scale it, right? Because these energy assets, when we pop them in the repository, they hold. When we set the vortex and we put all our clients in it, then we provide all this extra energetic layers of support. And some of my clients who do this work, they do it out front. They offer it as like a service, like an add-on to the work that's already in their programs. And some of them do it a bit on the stealth, right? They say, are you open to me sending you extra support, like energy along the way? And that's all they say. And then they just continue to feed vortexes and give, different support. Well, I don't want to get too into it, right? But that's what you do. But you can also do it for your family. You can do it for your community. Some people set vortexes around their home and kind of feng shui their home with energy vortexes. There's lots of stuff you can do, right? There's so many things you can do professionally with it. So you'll probably hear me talk about it in the future professionally, but you don't have to do it professionally. You can do it all sorts of ways. Okay, I'm going to check the comments now. So if you're interested in all of that and you haven't yet said I'm interested in the details, go ahead, let me know, and I'll send you more information. No obligation, but I'll send you all the details. And I'll talk about it like next week. I don't want to go into it all while we're doing this work in too much more depth. Okay, I'm brand new to this. Would this work for bringing in a specific material thing into your life? Like, is there a class? Okay, so you're talking manifestation in some form. Yep, you can do manifestation work. That is like one simple form. I was just thinking, oh, yeah. No, you could definitely do manifestation work. You could definitely set up a grid. You could feed the grid, similar to what I've got going for the event here. You can absolutely do manifesting work on the altar and amplify it for sure. And I think, unless Facebook took it down, which they might have, if they have, let me know. I actually still have all the Lionsgate event work here in the group, and that was all manifestation, that whole series. That might take you out because that was as big as this, but I did a huge amount of manifestation teaching in there. So if that's what you want to do, you're welcome to go look at that. Okay, next class. We're going to be talking about boundaries, protection, how to know if the work has landed. We're going to dive a lot deeper into cultivating really solid essences, your nervous system state, the energetic first responder state that you want to be in to really serve at that next level for you, right? Light workers are ascending as well, which means they're going to their next level. And it requires more maturity for us and more ground in our systems. I'm going to go into all of that next class. Okay, and of course in our final cast in the ritual next Wednesday, we're going to actually cast this work in the group field. I will guide you through it step by step. The group field will amplify the work. You'll get to feel the intensity of what happens when everyone moves energy in the group, and that energy will actually just give your work an extra propel as well. So it's an awesome opportunity to cast for something that you really care about and get a big extra oomph to it. Okay, my loves, that is it. If there are no more questions, I will, of course, check questions over the next 24 hours. Every question, every comment gets another entry in the celebration giveaway, which I will talk about in more depth next week. Sorry, I'm being a bit vague about that. If you have questions, if you want me to go over your work, you can either email it to me or just pop it in the group here. Popping it in the group means that other people can also give you suggestions, not tell you what to do, just give you more ideas, and I'm happy to do that too. So, oh, Lou, mwah, I am in appreciation of you too. Thank you for spending this hour with me. As always, this community is a joy to be in. It's a pleasure to teach in this space with you all, and I'm looking forward to the next class. Okay, much love everyone. Mwah.